Hi everyone, Tammy here, Flannel Chick MTB. Welcome to my channel. I was hoping to record this video out on the trail today. I'm loaded up and I'm heading out for a solo ride, but it is looking darker and darker by the minute. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to make it to the trailhead before whatever weather looks like is approaching lands. This video is a mindset video, and I want to talk with you about how our mood affects our riding. Now, we all know that our riding has a positive effect on our mood, and I talk a lot about this on my Instagram page about what a mood enhancer mountain biking has been for me. But what about the reverse? What about when our mood affects how we feel on the bike, affects our performance on the bike, and how we feel about our ride? Well, I have made it to the trailhead and no sign of rain yet. Actually, it looks clearer here than it was at my place, so I think we're going to get a ride in. Now, for those of you who are from Calgary, you might recognize this place. So let's hop on the bike and let's talk mood and mountain biking. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm always going on about how much joy mountain biking has brought me and what a mood enhancer it is. And anyone who mountain bikes probably will agree. I'm preaching to the choir. Lots of reasons. I think being outside, being in nature, but also, because mountain biking requires so much focus, it's almost a mindful activity in that you can't really be worrying about your problems or stressing too much because you need to be focusing on what you're doing. Otherwise you're going to crash and get hurt. And so that really provides a break from stress. Break from being caught in our heads. And that alone helps improve mood. Never mind the benefits of exercise and the benefits of nature and being in the outdoors. So, mountain biking is good for the mood. But what about when your mood isn't good for your mountain biking? And I want to talk about why that might be. How our mood can really affect our experience on the bike. How our emotions, our feeling states, are a significant factor in our mindset. So although I could talk for hours about mindset, I won't bore you with that today, except to say that mindset is more than mind. Our mindset also includes the domains of our body, somatics, and our emotions, our feeling states. And so our emotional states and our mood really do predispose our actions on the bike. You can think about our emotions like fuel for our actions. But not only does our mindset predispose our actions, it offers us a perspective about our capacity, our competency. And so depending on our mood, we might feel less capable less competent. And it's important to know that our assessment of ourselves in terms of our capacity or competence might not be reliable. We're looking at ourselves through the filter of an emotion, through the filter of our mood. That's why sometimes we come to things that we've ridden successfully before. We know logically, cognitively, we're able to ride it, but we're struggling. I wanted to talk about this today because I think it's really important for us to understand ourselves and understand that we're not robots, that our riding doesn't occur inside of a vacuum. That whatever emotional states we have going on, whatever moods we have, we carry them with us onto our bikes, into our rides. And that affects our experience, our performance, but also our experience of ourselves, on the bike. Now, as a mindset coach, of course, intellectually, cognitively, I know all this, but it really hit home for me in the last few years, and I'll share some personal things. Those of you who know me will already know this, it's not a secret, but in a very short span of time, in about 2 years, I lost my entire family. My mother passed away suddenly. Very shortly after that, my father passed away. The pandemic hit, and shortly into the pandemic, my brother died. And so essentially, everyone in my family passed away within 2 years. Then, of course, in the middle of that, we're living through a pandemic and all kinds of losses around that, just like for most of us, I think. And meanwhile, I'm trying to progress on my mountain bike. And what became really, really apparent, especially in the early days, early weeks, early months post my loss, when I was really heavy in sadness, heavy in grief, feeling quite heavy-hearted and walking through the world feeling really vulnerable, like, wow, anything can happen. I found myself at times in that emotional state wanting to go for a ride because it always works, it's such a good antidote, but also feeling very vulnerable on my bike. Really struggling to push myself outside my comfort zone, struggling to do things that would help me progress because my baseline emotional state felt vulnerable. I felt like bad things could happen. I felt sad. I felt heavy. I felt bereaved. And so these are emotions that make it very difficult to ask ourselves to do scary things, to ask ourselves to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone even more. And so even though intellectually and logically I wanted to be on my bike, even though intellectually and cognitively I wanted to progress, my emotional state made that very difficult for me. And so a lot of times over the last few years, rather than push myself to progress if I wasn't feeling it, I needed to engage in some self-compassion. I needed to be gentle with myself. I needed to go for a fun ride. I needed to enjoy being on my bike and not expect that that ride was going to be about progress. It really makes a lot of sense just intuitively. We know that when we feel inspired, enthusiastic, confident, emboldened, then we show up very differently. Things look differently. Through that emotion, a certain mindset creates a very different perspective, a very different lens that allows us to take actions that when we feel insecure, when we feel vulnerable, really feel almost impossible. Now, in my work, I teach people how to work with their emotions and how to shift emotion. And it is very possible to shift our emotions, to begin to reach for a better feeling emotion than the one that we're in. And there's all kinds of tools and strategies for that. And in mindset work, it is a really important tool. But I think it's also really important to understand that at certain times in our life, depending on what's going on, depending on our circumstances, our emotions are perfectly appropriate. And trying to get out of those difficult emotions really is counterproductive in the long run. So being able to discern, is this a feeling state that I can improve upon based on how I'm thinking about things, based on my perspective, based on taking an action? Or is this an emotion that's a messenger, that's here to tell me a little bit about what I'm experiencing right now, such as loss, grief? Now, in future videos, I really want to talk about certain emotions, like the emotion of fear and the emotion of anxiety, because sometimes those emotions are messages we're getting that's specifically related to what we're doing on the bike. They're not carryover emotions. They're not emotions that we're bringing to our ride based on something else that's going on in our life. Sometimes trail side, we're experiencing fear and we're experiencing anxiety because of a trail feature, because of a section of trail, because of something we're asking ourselves to do on our bike. And so in a future video, I want to talk with you about how to work with that and how to know whether this is a fear that we should acknowledge and appreciate and listen to, or whether this is a fear that we should acknowledge and take action despite that fear. So if there are things that are going on in your life right now that are creating big feelings, big emotions, and you're finding that it's impacting you on the bike, I just wanted to offer this video because I hope that you can appreciate that this too shall pass, that this isn't an indication that you're taking steps backwards in terms of your skill or your progression, that this is a temporary space that you're in, and that because of the big emotions that you're feeling that are very likely very appropriate, it is having you show up feeling a little bit differently on your bike, perhaps a little more anxious, perhaps a little more vulnerable, a little more tentative or hesitant. Recognize that that's perfectly okay. Be compassionate with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and go have a fun ride somewhere. Progress will wait for you another day. You know, none of us are immune to the hardships in life. And I'm curious if you've had any things go on in your life that have affected you on the bike. If there has been something you've dealt with, or if there is right now, I really hope that you're going to be compassionate with yourself, gentle. And understand it's really normal that our feelings affect our performance. Now, speaking about future videos, I'd love to hear from you. If there are certain mindset topics you're curious about, you'd like me to cover, leave a comment. This is such a fun section. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, share this video with anyone you think might be interested in it. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe. I really appreciate you watching, joining me. Happy riding, everyone.